Hello my dear YouTuber friends, and I do hope you're all keeping well. Welcome to this new video. Now a couple of days ago, by the time you're watching this video, a few days ago maybe, I released a short video showing you how you can zoom in and out using actually Rosen's Garmin Mini. I'll link that short in the top right for you if you've not seen it. How you can zoom in and out. Well, Rosen has been aiding me again, and we can now use, on a flight stick, if it has dials like this, rotary dials, you can use that to zoom in and out smoothly. So if you're down in the instruments, up in the air, you want to look down at your instruments, you want to zoom into them. There we go, we can use that dial to zoom in and out gradually, which is nice. And people are asking, well, just use the mouse, the middle mouse. Well, if you don't want to take your hands off your flight controller, there's no need to now. No need to it. Like I said, I'm going to show you the setup with the dial, and it's using a program called Mobiflight or Mobiflight. I'll be showing you how to set this up as well. It's only for PC Flight Simulator currently, or PC Microsoft Flight Sim. I'm hoping that if this video gets enough likes and enough people watching it, maybe a Sobo will pay attention and actually enable these controls within the sim itself. That would be a lot easier, so we could set up dials within the sim. Currently we can't. I'll be showing you that as well. I'll also be showing you how you can do similar on controls that don't have dials, so maybe something like the Velocity 1 flight stick. I'll be showing you how you can set that up. It's not quite as good, but you can still set up that gradual zoom. Okay, let's not dilly-dally. Let's get on with this video. Okay, so the first thing first, before we get to Mobiflight, let me just show you the default settings within the sim. Just go to Options, and of course control options. Ensure that your flight controller is selected. I'm using the Raptor Mach 1. Link to that in the top right, by the way. It's a great HOTAS system with dials and lots of buttons. I'm quite enjoying using it, especially for this purpose. Anyway, what you want to do is go to Filter down here and make sure this is on all. Let's just show all the possible setups that we can set up, of course. Go into Camera up here, so Camera menu, and in Camera go to Cockpit Camera. Now the only settings you can set up for zoom currently in Microsoft Flight Sim at the date of recording this video are Cockpit Zoom Cockpit View and Unzoom Cockpit View. Ignore the lockables. It's the same thing basically, but zoom cockpit view and unzoom, there's no in between. I've got a new profile set up here because I'm just going to put these on one of my hat switches. So zoom cockpit view, I'm going to click into that, start scanning, move my hat up and validate, and unzoom cockpit view, same thing, start scanning, move my hat down and validate. Don't worry about this, I'm just showing you. You probably know this if you've tried it already. Go into the sim, zoom in, and zoom out. There's no in between. Basically, you can either zoom all the way in or all the way out. So if you move your camera down, you get to your instruments. I'm going to use the mouse now. If I don't want to zoom in that much, I have to use my mouse to zoom out slightly, so I'm not falling on the instruments. So you probably know this. So I'm hoping one day this will be implemented where I can use, either a dial, well, specifically a dial, to smoothly and gradually zoom in and out. Currently you can't in the sim on Xbox or PC by default. Let's just pause that. I'm going to point you towards a page, and I'm going to put this down in the description. It's Mobiflight or mobiflight.com en download. It's where you download the latest version of Mobiflight or Mobiflight. So it's 9.6.0. I've got it downloaded already. I've got it in one of my folders. It's here. I'm going to walk you through this step by step. So here's the zip file. Of course, double click that. You probably know what to do with a zip file. I'm using WinRAR, of course. Going to extract to and it will create a folder for it within this folder. There we go. So Mobiflight is connected. It's installed rather, it's here. Double click into the folder and you want to find MF connector. It's got application here, so you know that's the application to use. Double click on it. I found you don't need to run this as administrator. I've had no issues with it. Might come up with donate. It could be a good idea if you're going to use it just to donate £1 or $2 or $1 or $2. But it's up to you. It is free to use. And what first thing you want to do, once you've installed this, is a fresh install. I'm going to go to Extras, MSFS 2020, Download Latest Events, Hub. So I'm going to do that. Don't worry about this writing at the bottom, I'll come to this later in the video. It will download the latest events, won't take long, it's only a small file. And it should come up. Sometimes it says WASM is installed correctly. Sometimes it will come up, could not be installed. Just click OK there. Same menu, Extras, Microsoft Flight Sim 2020, install WASM module. And it will say module is already installed and up to date. So that's that part. What I'm going to do now is show you the setup. How you can set up, in my case, a dial to zoom in and out gradually and smoothly. So let's continue setting up one of the dials on my Raptor for zoom in, zoom out. If you're not seeing this down here, it's important to see, if I move one of my controllers, it will tell me what I'm moving. I'm moving the dial I want to use. It tells me it's a Y rotation. Also lets me know that it's a gradual dial. It's not just an analog dial. If I move it all the way left and right, it should go all the way up to 65535. If I move it all the way down or left in this case, it should go back down to 0, as it does. To have that showing, so any button, I'm using my joystick, my X-axis, my Y-axis, my hat switch, well, it's showing it as buttons at the moment, and goodness knows what. To have that show it, go to Extras again, go to Settings, so Extras Settings, and show that you've got logging enabled, and that you've got it on debug here, on this drop-down menu. So logging enabled, and log axis, joystick axis if you want to as well, and debug here. And that will show that. So move the dial you want to use and ensure that it's showing numbers like that. So when I'm moving it right at the well, anti-clockwise at the moment. That'd be a better way to say it. And it goes all the way up to 65535, and clockwise it will go back down to 0. So that's correct. So what we want to do now is create a config. Just double click in here, create a new config, and I'm going to call this Raptor. Oh, how's that? Raptor, right? And then go to Input Configs. This is where you're going to set up the dial, essentially. And again, you want to double click in here to add a new file under Input Configs now. And I'm going to call this one, if you want to follow along, I'm going to call it Zoom. Right, so Zoom is ticked now, and that's the one we're going to use. And if you go right to the right here, under Edit, you've got a box with a few dots. Left click on that, and it will open this menu, Input Config Wizard, and then go to Input. So I hope I'm not going too fast there. Let's just show you that again. So once you've created your main config file, which I've called Raptor, go to Input Configs, create a new one called Zoom, go to your right, left click on this little box here, and it will open the Input Config Wizard, and go to Input. Now the module you want to select is the one you'll be using. I've only got the Raptor connected to my laptop at the moment, so I'm going to choose that. Raptor Throttle it's called, but it's actually the whole HOTAS system. And device is the button or dial you want to use. Remember before, just a moment ago, it was the Y rotation, I believe. In fact, I can come out of that and move that dial again. Yeah, it's the Y rotation, the dial I want to use. So go back into there again. Input, I'm going to have to choose module again. Raptor Throttle. and it's the Y rotation. So I'm going to scroll down to the Y rotation. This is not for the faint-hearted, by the way, but I'm just showing you how you set this up. Not too difficult, but it does take a little bit of know-how. Once you get used to it, it's quite easy. And action type here, you want to open the menu and select Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020. That's the one we'll be using. Wait a second, this will populate. Vendor down here, just choose Microsoft. We'll be using a Microsoft aircraft. Aircraft, don't worry about it, it seems to work anyway. But under System, use the drop-down menu. Trying to go as slowly as I can so you can follow along. Not for the faint-hearted, but not too difficult. And go to Interaction. Okay, so that's what you want to set up. Choose your module, your flight controller. Choose what button or dial to use. In my case, a Y rotation. Choose the action type. Basically, your flight sim. Microsoft Flight Simulator. This will open up. Vendor Microsoft. System Interaction. The only last thing we need to do is show preset code. Tick on that. And I've got something copied into the dashboard at the moment. Is it a dashboard they call it? Anyway, I've got something copied into memory. So I'm just going to paste it into this box. So tick show preset code. And I'm going to put this down in the description. These are the kind of numbers and calculations behind the zoom, basically. This is what makes it work. So I've just pasted that in to this box here. I'm going to click OK. Go back to Output Configs. Choose Raptor. I don't want to rename it. And just go Run. Now if we go back to the sim, I'm going to use that dial. Yep. It's working fine. It's working as intended. Also down in the description, I'm going to put the config file to show you how you can do this externally as well. Zoom in and out externally, which is quite handy. So I don't need to reach for the mouse now. I've got that set up. Well, listen, okay, that's set up using a dial. What if you don't have a dial on your flight controller? Let me show you how to do this with buttons. So now I'm going to show you a similar way of how you can set up zoom in, zoom out on controllers that don't have dials, like the Velocity 1 flight stick. Interestingly enough, it does have a couple of levers, and these levers are incremental, so I could use this right-hand lever for zoom in and out. That's fantastic. I'll be showing you that. But first, I'm going to set my Hat 1 up for zoom in, zoom out, zoom out. For those of you who don't have the Velocity 1 flight stick or dials on your HOTAS or flight controllers. So let's go to Mobiflight. And similar to what we did before, double click in this box so you can see the flashing cursor. I'm just going to call this V1 flight stick or FS. Similar to what we did before, so the output config, just call that something. Input config. This is a little bit different. We're going to have to create two separate profiles here. One for zoom in, one for zoom out. Double click in the box here. And I'm going to call this zoom in. Okay, before I go into edit in this box, move your controller or your buttons, and like I showed before, under extras and settings, make sure that logging is enabled and that debug mode is on. So I'm moving my hat up and down. Yep, it's quite straightforward. Moving my Hat 1 up is hat switch up. Moving it down, it's hat switch down. So I know which buttons to assign under edit. So zoom in. Click in the box here. Module. I've only got the Velocity 1 flight stick attached, so I'm going to choose that. Device. I know from testing it in the debug box down here, it's hat up. And action type, like we did before, choose Microsoft Flight Sim 2020. Wait for the boxes to populate. Vendor Microsoft. System Interaction, like we did before. I'm not going to select show preset code in this case. We're setting up buttons, but I will select preset from this down box here, and I want to choose cockpit camera zoom increase or INC here, and that will as I'll show you later, zoom into the cockpit using my hat switch. I'm going to press OK there. I'm going to have to create another line here. So I'm going to, instead of renaming this, I'm going to come to the left here where this little arrow is. Right click and go duplicate row. And it's called zoom in copy. I'm going to rename that to zoom out. Zoom out. So we got the zoom in set up. So zoom out. If I click in edit here, it will show the same things because it's just created a copy. But I'm going to change the device to hat switched down. Or whatever button you want to use. Hat switched down. It's not for the faint-hearted, but it's not that difficult once you get used to it. And instead of increase, I'm going to choose cockpit camera zoom decrease. And OK. Now if I run that, go back to the sim, go back, resume, using my hat 1. Now I'm going to have to click it in each time I want to zoom in or zoom out in this case. Move down to my instruments, I want to get a closer look. I'm not going to do this myself, I want somebody to research this. Probably going to be Rosen, isn't it? But is there a way where I can hold my hat down and it will zoom in, and when I release my finger, it will stop zooming in or out? I'm having to click it in and out. So it's possible with buttons. It's not as good as a dial, but we do have, remember I showed you before, we do have, ooh, come on, this extra lever. Let's set this one up. Okay, so let me now show you how you can set up if you own the Velocity 1 flight stick, or even something like the Airbus HOTAS or flight stick. You can set up the throttle lever. If you're not using one of the throttle levers, I'm not going to use this right-hand one, for example, you can set this up for zoom. I'll show you how. I've deleted any assignments that I had set on there. I had mixture on there. I've deleted that for this profile. Let's go to Mobiflight. Output configs, I've just kept it Velocity 1 flight stick. That's fine for the output config. Input config. Again, we're going to create a new config. So I'm just going to type in zoom. In this case, it's just going to be the one config file. I'm going to move that right-hand lever up and down to see what it's called. It's called dial. If you notice with the Velocity 1 flight stick, all the way up it should get to 65535. All the way down it should get to 0. So it is the type of lever. Check your lever to make sure that you get from 0 to 65535, and this should work. Okay, so I know it's called dial. Let's go to this edit box like we did before. Module, Velocity 1 flight stick, device, dial, action type, Microsoft Flight Sim 2020, wait for the boxes to populate. Vendor, remember that's Microsoft. I went through this slowly before. If you need to refresh your memory, go and watch it. Go and watch the previous part. System interaction. And in this case, we do need to show preset code. We're going to input our own code. This is a separate code to the one I showed you before. I'm going to link this down in the description as well. I've got it copied into the memory. So I'll just paste it in there. Press OK. Let's run that now. Go back to the sim, go back, resume, use that lever. Yep, it works fine. So I don't need to reach out for the mouse now. Reset my cockpit view using the button I've got assigned. I can zoom in and out. Once I get to my instrument, zoom in and out. Lovely, lovely. It was actually Rosen who showed me all this. In fact, well, that's how you use, before I get to that part, that's how you can use the lever on your Velocity 1 flight stick to zoom in and out. That's lovely, lovely, I've got to say. Let's put it in the center. That's perfect. And I'm going to give a big thanks to Rosen. I was putting this video you're seeing now, on the back burner. Let's just go to my channel page. That was a private conversation between me and Rosen, but I don't think there's anything there confidential. on my Discord server, Hodison's Flight Sim. I'll link that down below in the description always. Anybody is free to join this. Within that server, to the left here, just scroll down a little bit, you'll see a channel called Rosen's Panel Building. He's got lots of different ideas. In fact, he's showing a video of him using that profile I just set up. He passed it on to me, but look at all these different projects he's got going. He's got quite a few fans in there already, and he's helping so many people. And I did give him a shout out yesterday. Show your support for Rosen, chaps. What he thinks is simple is revolutionary for a lot of it, and it certainly is. And Soapy seems to have agreed there, which is fantastic. Go and support him, and go and see what other projects without him this video wouldn't be possible. Anyway, let me know your thoughts on this video, chaps. Give it a thumbs up if you've enjoyed it. Try and share it, get it out there. Hopefully Asobo will have these settings by default within the sim itself, so that Xbox users can come and do similar things like we're doing here. Let me know your thoughts, give it a like if you've enjoyed it, subscribe for more, and I'll see you soon.